In November 1981, the leadership of the three major faiths in New York, the New York Board of Rabbis, the New York State Catholic Conference, and the New York State Council of Churches, joined together to issue a statement of affirmation and support for public education. The following 10-minute program features members of the Interfaith Advisory Council discussing the statement with Commissioner Ambach. On November 3rd, the program was sent to 35 television stations and 200 radio stations.
We are pleased to present New York State Education Commissioner Gordon Ambach with three members of the Commissioner's Interfaith Education Advisory Council. They're here to comment on the recent Statement on Affirmation and Support of Religious Institutions for Public Education. Commissioner Ambach.
Just as the church and synagogue require the support of the educational community to achieve their purposes, education requires the active support of church and synagogue. That is a part of a very important new statement, which has been endorsed by the New York Board of Rabbis, the New York State Catholic Conference, and the New York State Council of Churches. It is a statement on affirmation and support of religious institutions for public education. Thank you for joining us. We'd like to take this opportunity to talk about this statement. I'm joined by colleagues from the Interfaith Education Advisory Council who were instrumental in preparing this statement. Dr. Gloria Rasberry of Syracuse, Father Howard Basler of Brooklyn, Rabbi Martin Silverman of Albany. The historical background of this paper is important. Father Basler?
Well, the paper is an effort to put into context the concern of religious persons for the quality of education, and specifically public education. As you know, we meet quarterly, and very often our conferences and consultation deals with issues, sometimes conflicts, and we felt it would be constructive and I guess necessary, given the climate of the day, to step back and to express as clearly and succinctly as we could the reason for our being with you as religious representatives, and to state that we are part of a long tradition of religious concern for public education in our country.
The statement provides a strong reason for having such a statement at this point, and then develops some historical background.
Well, to quote from it for a moment, we say right at the beginning that education in America can be traced from the mission schools of the Spanish and French colonists to the more formal schools for clergy and laity in theocratic New England. And what we meant to say in that simple way was that the people who founded our country from the beginning saw education as essential to the fabric and quality of life. And we feel that we're part of that tradition, meeting with you.
And certainly the Jewish immigrants who came in such large numbers at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century, used the public schools as their major means of integration into American society. The public school was looked upon by the first and second generation Jewish immigrants as the main instrument by which they became Americans and have established themselves as probably the most important Jewish community in the world today.
The paper then has this kind of historical background, but of course it notes that in that historical background there have been tensions.
Oh yes, very often the religious community and the public education community look upon each other as competitors, and they even condemn each other publicly for what they're doing. And at this point in history, public education is coming under great fire because of other things in society which are coming to a focus at this particular point. And the statement deals with this phenomenon in the following sentences. Schools and other formal educational institutions are being called upon to accomplish more for more persons than ever before. These demands are at times reasonable, at times excessive.
I think there's a very real sense in which that statement speaks to the tension that has existed in the past. And one particular area of concern has been that of education of the minorities, in which the church might very well have been a support for public education as opposed to a critic, a support in the sense that it develops the moral conscience of citizens in support of understanding and equal education for all. And we feel that there is an important sense in which this needs to be changed from criticism to support, and to bring this kind of statement to the attention of our religious bodies and citizens throughout the state is an important contribution to education in itself, shifting from tension and conflict to another area.
So it has in the statement a very strong emphasis on the mutual support.
Very strong, and I think that it's certainly true of our traditions, the Judeo-Christian tradition, that we speak very often of the fact that we are our brother's keeper. And in the public sector, we hear that no man is an island, and this is very definitely true in the area of our concern with the quality of life of the individual and being responsible for those around us. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, then is actually put into action in the things that we do. And the church then, assuming this role of support for the public schools, becomes an agent in improving the lot of those around us, and that becomes tremendously important.
Well, don't you perceive, or do you perceive in our own day, a tendency of people to identify the educational mission almost exclusively with the administrators, teachers, school boards, those formally involved in the system?
Very definitely, and I think this is in part due to the fact that we have looked at our role as neutral, becoming neutral agents or remaining neutral agents, and have misinterpreted that. I think that neutrality has meant that we do not try to impose our religious tradition or beliefs on those in the schools, insisting that they conform in one way or another. But it has not meant that we fail to intervene or to participate in changing and speaking to issues, whether it be discipline or education for the handicapped, creating a climate of concern in the whole area of competency and teacher and student competency, of becoming informed about the needs, the specific things that will make a difference in the quality of lives of those who hear sermons or sit next to us in pews, whether it's in Sabbath school or in church or service or what have you.
We have here a very unique circumstance, this unique statement which has been endorsed by three major faiths. What are the next steps? What's the importance of this statement across our state?
I think we need to really move to exactly some of the things that are indicated in the statement and expect that those who read it will realize that in a very large and definite sense there is a concern on the part of our religious bodies that we act out our beliefs, that we take part in the activities in our community. I would imagine that we will be hearing these in sermons and in organizational meetings, that we will receive them in our congregations, and that from there we will take to heart some of the words that are in this very statement, Father Basler.
And certainly the council, in its discussions as we were drawing up the statement, expressed the feeling that by having the statement endorsed by the major religious institutions in the state, that on the grassroots level in the individual synagogue and individual church throughout our community, that some of these conflicts and tensions will be diffused, and that the people in this state who look to religion as a guide will use the religious values to help strengthen public education in New York State.
I'll just go back to the statement, the final paragraph, which speaks to some of the ways in which that strengthening would take place. We ask for religiously committed people to really take as their own responsibility for the quality of public education in community, state, and nation. And we say that they should be willing candidates for local school boards, active participants in parent-teacher organizations. They should be responsible in their evaluation and support of educational budgets, and advocate educational innovation and improvement for all, and we add especially among the poor and disadvantaged.
I thank you, Father Basler, Rabbi Silverman. Dr. Rasberry, thank you for joining us to hear something about this very important statement. This statement has been endorsed by the New York Board of Rabbis, by the New York State Catholic Conference, and by the New York State Council of Churches. It will be widely distributed throughout our state and by the State Education Department. We hope that you will read it and that you will discuss it and that you will follow its implications. Thank you.
Copies of this statement are available from Public Information, the New York State Education Department, Albany, New York, 12234.